Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here. Welcome to another edition of What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility, the show we do on Wednesdays where we talk about some of the cool new releases that have come out in the worlds of heavy metal, progressive rock, hard rock, classic rock, jazz fusion. Those are the kind of the realms that we cover here on the channel. For this episode, we're actually going to do a little book review here. So we've got the brand new, just released autobiography from the legendary Ronnie James Dio, Rainbow in the Dark. So, of course, this particular book Ronnie had started many years ago, while he was still alive, obviously. We lost Ronnie, of course, way too soon for most of us, and I don't think any of us were ready for that at all, and I know we all miss him every day. So here we've had, his wife, Wendy, has helped kind of put the finishing touches on this and make sure that this got out because, Ronnie's story continued all the way till the day he died. There was plenty of things to tell. I will preface this review by letting everybody know that basically the events that take place in this book end in 1986, I believe, or 1987. So that was apparently, while Ronnie was putting this together, while he was still with us, he only intended his story coming from him, to go up until that point. Because I think that in Ronnie's mind, 1986, 1987 was everything up until that point. That was the pinnacle. He reached the point in his life that he wanted to reach. Professionally, career, musically. It didn't get much better than right there. And that was the story he wanted to tell. So his rise from growing up in upstate New York and Cortland, New York, an Italian family, all right, starting to discover music and hooking up with bands and playing all over the upstate circuit, eventually, making his way to New York City and eventually, forming the band Elf and, then getting on the tours with Deep Purple and meeting Ritchie Blackmore and Ritchie pulling him and the rest of the Elf band in to form Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, and then Ritchie firing most of the band and bringing in new folks to form, the Rainbow Rising lineup, through Long Live Rock and Roll to Ritchie, him leaving Rainbow and Ritchie dismantling Rainbow once again for another new lineup. And then, of course, meeting Tony Iommi and joining Black Sabbath for Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules and kind of what happened towards the end of that. And then, of course, forming the Dio band and the Dio band, the quick ascension to, the top of the metal heap in the mid-'80s. And that's basically what you get here. So there's a lot of back history on Ronnie growing up as a kid, his family life, him discovering music for the first time and learning, how to play. He started off playing horns and then he moved to bass and play some piano. And you can, the funny little stories are great because obviously you're hearing it from the guy himself. And I think that if you've read any of these rock bios or autobiographies, I think, it almost goes without saying that you kind of have to hear about the early days, the childhood days, because that's, in most cases, what happens in your childhood kind of gets you ready for what's going to happen in adulthood. And that's basically, no difference here in Ronnie's case. And there is plenty of good commentary on like the formation of Elf and the Elf band members. There's plenty of time spent with the Rainbow years and the Black Sabbath years, although I will say for longtime fans, probably not enough. This book is not very long. It's only 200 and it's not even 250 pages, right? So probably for me, if I have any criticism of this book, I would have liked this to continue on. I want to hear the rest of the story because there is other parts of the story, right? There's the reunions with the Black Sabbath members. There's the, the rest of the Dio days where there's plenty of, basically here you get Craig Goldie joining the band, and then that's like it, right? You just that second lineup of Dio is kind of where this all ends, and there's so much after. I mean, I want to hear about the various different lineup changes in Dio. Like I said, I want to hear about Dehumanizer and Heaven and Hell band. I want to hear about all these other things, the hearing aid, all that kind of stuff. And you don't really get a lot, you get a little bit of that here, obviously. But, and that is before the book ends. So there is a little bit of that in here, but not a lot. So there's a lot that, hasn't been told, and I'm sure, Wendy, I believe, is going to do a part 2 of this, and that's going to be more of her recollections from everything hereafter, which is fine. And I kind of wish it was all in one volume, though. I get why maybe you want to do 2 books, because this is what Ronnie wanted to do, and then maybe the second part of this will be what will tell the rest of the story, which I'm sure plenty of us are interested in, and it'd be good to hear. I would love to hear the story from, more from Tony, more from Geezer, more from Vinny, and people who were around Ronnie and the last, like 10, 15, 20 years of his life would be really cool as well. But this is a fun read. It's a really quick read. I started this, and again, it's only 230 pages or so I was done with this in like a day and a half. And Ronnie had, I guess, for those who knew him or those who, followed him, he was always a great storyteller, whether it be through his lyrics, all right, whether his, banter in between songs at live gigs. I've saw, Ronnie live many, many, many times. And, just during interviews and all that kind of stuff, Ronnie was just a good communicator. And he loved talking about, his life, his music, his stories, and whatever. And that's this. So you almost feel like you're sitting down next to the man, hearing these stories firsthand. And they couldn't have come from anybody else other than Ronnie James Dio. So it's a fun read. To me, it feels a little incomplete, but I guess we're going to get a part 2 of this at some point. But I would have liked to hear more from Ronnie himself about the rest of his life, and not just, him. We headline Madison Square Garden as the Dio Band in 1986 or 87. That was the pinnacle of my career. That's what I always wanted to do. And that's all I really need to tell. And that's kind of how it feels, but it's a fun read. And it's a read that everybody who is a fan of the man and who followed him, you're going to want to read this book. So I can only highly recommend this. Like I said, I do have a couple reservations, which I've talked about, but that's okay. That's all right. But he's been gone so long now. Crazily, the years go by so fast that it's kind of good to hear from him, even all these years later. So Rainbow in the Dark, the Ronnie James Dio autobiography, basically from his very, very beginning, his childhood up until the late 80s. That's what you got here. So if you're expecting the 90s and the 2000s, it's not part of this book, unfortunately. But lots of good stories. A lot of interesting things to say about Blackmore and Cozy Powell, and the relationships within the Rainbow camp, the relationships within the Sabbath camp. It's what's interesting is that what he's telling here when it comes to Sabbath is basically the relationships in those just short couple of years, Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. So if you've listened to interviews and hear them talk, even from Wyoming and whatever, those guys grew way closer later on when they reconnected back in the 90s and the 2000s. So here, there's still that tenuous kind of, he's basically talking about how the relationship was then. Ronnie doesn't give any clues in this book as to what happened later on. So it's almost like this was written back then, right? So it's kind of interesting. So yeah, check it out if you haven't already. Well worth getting. If you're a fan, you're going to want to read this. So thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Stay tuned. We're going to probably get one more of these coming up today. And then we'll see you all next week with more new product reviews. We've got The Monsters Den tomorrow with Chris Allo and myself ranking our 5 favorite Dario Argento horror giallo thrillers. And then, of course, Friday at the Funhouse with Martin Popoff on Friday morning. And then Sunday, we've got another installment of Album Homework Assignment, this time with George LeMay and Rand Kelly, both from In the Prog Seat and various other shows here on the channel. So stay tuned for that and a lot more. Please subscribe. Please consider making a donation via the Ko-Fi link below. Please also check out our merch page, and please check out seatranquility.org, our webzine that has been on the internet. I was going to say on the air, on the internet for 20 years this year. Thanks for watching. I am Pete Pardo. See you real soon. Bye-bye.